Hello and good evening, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Today is the start of day 15. I'm about 3.5 hours into the 15th day, so I've crossed 2 weeks of my 40-day water fast. I may go longer than 40 days, I'll be totally honest with you, but I may not. We'll see. But today I'm going to go over why 40 days, spiritual aspects of fasting, what I've come to realize. I do have some notes here. I'll talk a little bit about the saints when it came to their journey with fasting and such, and some unique things that they did or experienced that I kind of want to bring awareness to and thought to, and then my goals, if you will, which is really a spiritual goal. So I'm not going to discuss body weight or autophagy or all that kind of good stuff. I will say if you're doing a long fast, longer than 3 or 4 days, please make sure you're talking to someone in the medical field, especially if you're taking drugs, you're not healthy, all that kind of good stuff. It is a marathon, not a sprint. My first day of the 40 is kind of the good fundamentals there, so go to that if you want kind of a good lesson plan. It's all in there. So today may go a little long. I do have my thoughts written down, what I will go over, but I have a lot of people asking me questions about this, and I'm going to kind of take my time and flush through it. So why I did my 40-day fast? Well, the first time I did this was in 2021. That year I got compelled spiritually. A lot of my spiritual guidance, if you will, almost comes internally. It's like internal knowing, and I just get pushed internally like it's me saying, John, do this. And in that year I got pushed to do 100 days. And what happened is I got about to July or August, and I was doing a week, first week of every month. And then I took 2 or 3 months off. And then I got a connection, and I'll be totally honest, I'm not going to filter here any of this, so you'll get authentic, truly me expressing myself. Jesus, Yeshua, reached out to me and he goes, John, I'm going to challenge you, little brother. I want you to do my fast. And I timed it out, his fast, of course, being the 40-day fast, and I figured it out. It would end me around 15th or so of December, assuming I did it. So I said, all right, I'm going to do it. So I started that fast, and I got to 30 days or 32 days, and then I had, for lack of a better term, and I'll just use the language of kind of biblical language, is that a demon, a food demon, actually woke me up. And most people have demons, and this was, but anyway, so this is not about other people, this is my story. So going back, the demon woke me up at midnight, or 11:30 midnight, and I go to bed around 9 o'clock most nights on fasting. And when I got woken up, it was telling me to eat calzones, which I have not eaten in a decade. I loved them when I ate them, but I just haven't eaten them in like a decade. I stopped eating cheese for the most part. I wouldn't eat bread very commonly, so it was an unlikely thing for me to eat. And it woke me up for about a day or 2 or 3, each time around midnight, telling me to eat like it was starving, and having me look up on these drive apps that would deliver food, find out who's open at 11:30 midnight, who would deliver, all that kind of good stuff. It was kind of a crazy experience. And then a 32nd, 33rd day, something like that, my wife had grapes in the freezer, and I went downstairs and I would have a handful of grapes. I know it doesn't sound like much. It's probably less than 100 calories, maybe 150 calories, but I'm kind of a purist, if it will, and I'm like, I in my mind, I actually broke that fast on that day. Maybe not many people it's good enough, but in my heart and mind, it broke, or I broke it. And then a couple days later, I basically did that for 2 or 3 days, having this handful or 2 of these grapes, 1 to 200, maybe 300 calories maximum. And then I just said, I got to break this fast, because clearly I have broken it, I have lost, and to a certain extent I kind of felt defeated. It was very interesting. And by the way, and this is always the big thing, whenever you break fast longer than 4 or 5 days, always break with fruits, ideally watermelon, things like that. You need to flush this stuff out of your digestive tract. Later on, I had learned about, and I've actually seen at this point in my mind's eye, one more literal, I've actually seen demons now. So people talked about them, and I experienced them talking to me. And an easy way to find out if a person has a demon, because honestly, pretty much everyone does, is if you have a habit that you can't help, or like an addiction that seems uncontrolled, that's a demon. And don't view it as a bad thing. Just view it as part of being on planet Earth, and we're in the process of overcoming this. But my return to the fast is twofold. One, to support my beautiful, lovely wife. If you know her, send her some love. She's in the fasting, growing process. And two, to attack, and I have actually since learned how to cast out and rebuke these beautiful spirits. So this food demon that woke me up in 2021 in December, it's going to be gone once I hit the 35 day mark, and it props its beautiful head up and says, feed me. All right, so that was kind of the personal journey, why I'm doing the fasting. It's very much a spiritual journey. And the autophagy, which makes me look young, makes me actual young. If you notice if you look at video 1, which is again 2 weeks ago, and you look at me today, dramatic difference. And this is not just fat loss. It's your body literally goes into constant anti-aging. It seems to start really going to overdrive day 7. So, once I hit day 7 to 9, something like that, I generally just look roughly however many years younger I look. You can tell me in the chat how young or old you think I look. But I'm 46 by biological years. And last time I had my biological age measured, it was in the lower 20s, late teens. So I'm always curious after long fast what it is. Okay, so let me tell you how the spiritual side of fasting happens, or why they always say, well, real quick, let me talk about the Jesus quote. It's in Matthew and in John. He talks about these going cast out by fasting and demons. Is as you go through fasting, these beings literally starve, and they freak out, and there's a point that they basically can't hold on to anymore, and they just go. And that's where the again, it's in Matthew book chapter 17 verse 21, and they've taken out of Ronan. Aw, thank you, brother, I appreciate that. So if I look 26, that's the best thing I've ever heard all day. Appreciate it, Ronan, you made my day. What happens is these entities, they lose their grips because they literally starve, and because they don't have the food, they have to go somewhere. And another blessing that happens with fasting, and if you ever do it, I'm going to forewarn you, it isn't all fun. And then I'm not talking the physical feeling like crap because you major detoxing, when your body does repair. By the way, one of the biggest blessings ever of fasting is the body repair is off the charts. Like, I'm very healthy right now, but I still had a couple aches and pains, and they're all gone. My body feels amazing. But I've had knees repaired, back pinched nerve fixed, sciatica nerve fixed, probably 5 or 6 things, and a lot of them you forget just because you acclimate. You have these things get fixed and you kind of forget about, but it's a huge benefit. But I'll forewarn you, when things are getting fixed, you're exhausted, and that part hurts awfully. So when my knees were getting fixed in the process of your body self-repairing, because your body temple knows what to do, the pain on those knees kept me up at night some nights. So just understand that that's part of the process. So let me go back into the spiritual connection. So what happens to your brainwave state when you do these long fasts? You start getting this like for day 4 and day 5. You don't have to go super long and all that to actually experience this. Your brainwave state begins to chill out. And I did have coffee today, which is a hack I use to be able to maintain energy. But what happens is if I don't have coffee, your brainwave state slows down. So everything kind of chills out. And the way spiritual connection is stronger is if the more calm your mind is and the more relaxed your mind is, the more receptive you are to the divine, and possibly, let's say, a higher dimensional being like Jesus or some other beautiful, blessed, powerful, positive being. And when it gets that way, if you take the time to actively connect with, I'll just go simplified language, connecting with God. So if I actively try to connect with God, there is a much richer connection. And So, for example, if and this is super helpful for men, by the way. Women are generally more receptive spiritually because they're feminine natural essence. So if they, for example, were to talk to the divine and literally say, God, I would love your help on this, this, and this. Please give me some beautiful, blessed feedback. And I really want to have this powerful, beautiful connection with you. Give me your ideas. And then they sit there and they pray and they kind of sit in the reverence of that moment. They'll be much more receptive to hear and feel and get pictures and thoughts implanted in their mind. Some people call this a download. Doesn't really matter what you call it, but the point is you'll receive this information. And for men, during fasting, you get so much more receptivity. It's almost like your antenna to the heavenly realms is expanded, and it's maybe a 5G or 4G, much more broader signal, faster bandwidth than, let's say, a 1G or 2G kind of analogy there. So you have much broader connection. So when you connect and when you pray, or when you, for me, I'll often have a dialogue sometimes, and I'll ask questions against. I'll literally have it's not super fast, but I'll literally have a dialogue with the divine, asking for help on stuff, and it can be. It doesn't always have to be as spiritual as people say. It can be help me out with my fasting. What can I do? What can I? Any ideas on how I could do this better, or whatever, and I will get answers very readily. And if people are afraid, John, you could be talking to demons, there is something you can do. And by the way, as you do this more, you'll know who you're talking to. But as you're new to this concept, there's something called testing of spirits, which is in 1 John chapter 4 in the Bible, if you want to look it up. But the basic concept is you ask whoever's speaking with you, do you come in the name of the Christ? Do you come in the name of Jesus? Do you believe Jesus walked the earth? And you should get a yes to that right away. And so it's a beautiful thing. It's a major, major blessing. So everyone, the downside and the hard side of fasting is to reach to where you get to kind of chill out and enjoy and have these beautiful prayer times is really hard, because after day 3, fasting becomes unpleasant because you got to detox, the body's healing, you're completely exhausted. It's a very unpleasant situation for probably a year and a half, and this is assuming you're cleaning up your diet the whole time. If you're not doing that and you're eating the same stuff you normally eat, just be forewarned, you're on a much slower process. You'll still slowly heal, and eventually you'll be kind of compelled and pulled to eat healthier, but be aware that that's the downside. You're going to feel like crap, and you'll get flu. I mean, I get fevers all the time when I'm fasting. It's probably half of the days I have a fever when I wake up. Okay, so you have a much easier divine connection. Let's talk about the saints. So if you've ever studied the saints, and I know certain Christian traditions say don't worship saints and all that kind of stuff. I'm not here to tell you to worship them. I'm just telling you to study how they got how they were able to achieve what they achieved. And another term for these saints are what they call the ascetics. And the ascetics kind of had a simplified existence. And I'll tell you kind of the fundamentals, and you guys can add to it in the chat. I'm totally open for that. By the way, I'm going to add your thing here, Ronan, because you totally made my day. So the ascetics, or the saints, they did a few things different than regular humanity. They often lived away from society, so they had a little bit of a slightly reclusive lifestyle. So if you're in Trinidad, you may be at a monastery somewhere, or up on a hill camping. The point is, you wouldn't be in a heavy city as much as a regular person. They also were spending more time in spiritual practice. The saints are primarily Christian that I'm referring to, so they would spend a lot of time in prayer. Prayer being, for many of these, the most common form of spiritual practice. A lot of them also did chanting. You may have heard of the Benedictine monks and all that. But they would spend a lot of time doing this, is the point. And lastly is what I'm in the process of now doing, in fasting. And there's a few things that when they were doing this that sounds extraordinary or miraculous to our normal human experience, and that is, for example, I do not know all their names, and if you guys know them in the chat, feel free to help me out. So one very famously was able to literally almost like he would go to for lack of a better term, he would levitate, but not like levitate to fall off the ground. He would literally float to the ceiling of the church. So he'd be there in prayer and be so blissed out in the moment, connected with God, he would float to the top of the church. And he became such a distraction, the church didn't want him to be there. But what's funny is because he had such a high reverence and connection with God, his vibration was off the charts. So people wanted to be there with him, because if you've ever been someone who is very divinely connected and really, really, really just vibes at a high level, they feel amazing to be around. It's not purely exciting, it's like all is well. It's a peace, it's a serenity, it's a tranquility that they bring to the world, and it's really beautiful. So that's something, if you ever meet or be with people who kind of exist like this, that's an experience you'll have. All of these saints as well famously glowed, especially around the crown area, which is why you'd always see them with what do they call it? A halo. And it would be more pronounced around their head, but it would be also pronounced on their body. So they would have a glow to them. And as you kind of go up on the spiritual levels, if you will, if you almost view like a video game, as you go up the levels, you begin to actually have more of a physical glow to you, and it gets brighter and brighter as you go up the levels. And it's not a good thing or bad thing or anything like that, but it's a natural result of being more connected to the divine. So if there are not any questions, you can feel free to ask them, but I just have a couple more things here and then I'll finish up. So my encouragement for those who do want to fast, as I did reference, thank you, Ronan. I'll put this in the chat because not everyone's going to see this. When people start off in fasting, view it as a marathon, not a sprint. And honestly, for a long time, you just need to do intermittent fasting. You need to clean up your diet. You need to drink more water. You need to slowly remove flour, sugar, dairy. You don't have to do meat initially, but meat is very grounding. But the problem with a lot of meats as well, forget about the karmic side. There's a karmic side to it, and I'm not disregarding that. But in addition, most meats in most of the world are very, very, very laden with these herbicides, pesticides, and all that, because these animals eat that all the time, and their body gets stuck. Kind of like how you're detoxing when you fast. The meat that you eat isn't fully detoxified. These animals are not fasted. They are fed, fattened, and then slaughtered. It's a very simple process. But because of that, they don't run around like wild animals. Like all those things to a natural animal do help the detox. Eating live grass and all that. Most of these animals don't. There's a term for them, but they're grown. They don't see a lot of outside light, whatever that term is. And I know there's a term for it, but you understand the point. So that's one of the real issues with the modern meat industry, is a lot of that. And this is one of the reasons why you'll notice like women, young girls having menstruation happen far too young, things like that. So physiologically people are maturing, but it's because of the body's being pumped with things that just, women, these young girls will develop breasts at 10 and they shouldn't have breasts at 10 kind of thing. Anyway, so my encouragement would be to always start slow. Understand that it's not a competition. You're not going against anyone. I'm doing these lives and these teachings and all that not to tell everyone do what I'm doing, but I've been through it all. I did intermittent fasting for probably a decade before it became known as intermittent fasting. Again, I told you intuitively I kind of get pulled to do stuff. And so I was doing this intermittent fasting, so when I started doing fasting, it wasn't this hellish experience. The first step is intermittent fasting. which detoxes you as well. It does a little bit anti-aging, gets the younger look like we're talking about. But once you get comfortable with intermittent fasting, then you start doing 24, eventually 36, eventually 48-hour and longer fasts. But you should be confident doing a 24-hour fast before you do a 36, and then confident doing a 36 before you do a 48, and then slowly advance. And then once you go more than 4 or 5 days, the risk of legitimate, like life-threatening stuff, that's why you must talk to a doctor or medical professional going longer than 3 or 4 or 5 days, because anything that you've eaten, consumed, gets dropped and dumped slowly, but less slowly than you'd like, which makes you feel awful, into your bloodstream. And it basically it's a toxin, and your body's not happy to have it there, and you feel like garbage. So this is why you do intermittent fasting. You warm your body up to this, and then once you actually get to further along, it doesn't become as bad. So when I mentioned earlier, I did 96 days or 90 some days in 2021 in total, cumulative, not in once. And again, 32 to 36, depending how you look at it, was that long fast that went towards the end of the year. But I'm saying this because it started getting easier probably about, if I were to give you, let's say it was 0 to 100 days, around halfway through when I started doing week-long fasts, it didn't become a big deal anymore. Beginning of the year, I still had enough gunk in my system, enough body repair, enough detox. It was still not awful, but still not fun. And now on my bad days, by bad days, I still don't feel like garbage. I do stink a little bit, which I'm very happy about, because I'm a fan of, if I have to fix myself, if I have to clean up, I'm a huge fan. I'm not someone who poo-poos myself because I'm actually having my body clean itself out. So I'm a huge fan. So my encouragement for you would be, take your time. It's not a race. You're doing great. View video 1 for really, really full details. I talk about how to get into and out of fast. That's really paramount. That's really probably the most important thing. And again, my primary thing why I'm doing this is and I'm stoked, rebuke and cast out this demon, this food demon that broke me out of that fast in 2021. And I am very excited because now I know how to do it. I've done 4 to 6 demons, entities out of my system already. It's been beautiful. And I genuinely feel very confident. I'm not even remotely worried if I can or cannot do it, because I've been 100% successful so far. And if you guys are curious at all on how to do rebuking, casting out, and all that, I did make a YouTube video on my Destiny Ascension page. You can look it up. Or, again, there's a great guy named Pastor Vlad. I can't say his last name, but he has kind of a lazy eye on one side. He has an optical nerve injury on one side, so it's very easy to visually recognize. He is brilliant. He has a video on self-deliverance, which is epic. And Vlad is just so if you're interested in deliverance ministry, all that kind of stuff, Pastor Vlad is the bomb. So with that, since we don't have any further questions, I just want to say I love you. I appreciate you. Everyone who's been supporting me thus far, I love it. Keep on sending me your messages, whether in the chat, privately, whatever. Again, I'll get 2 to 5 private messages by tomorrow lunchtime, which I always love. And I always appreciate you guys' feedback, questions. There's no bad questions. If you're embarrassed, I'll answer you privately. I mean, don't feel bad. And then what I'll also do is, if there is a question that I haven't answered in a previous video, making it like a headline question, I'll add it. I mean, I got 25 days, so I got time. I do have my good friend Crystal has a question which I will publicly answer probably next time I see you guys. So much love. Thank you for all your support. You're amazing. And if you do start a fast or whatever and need support, feel free to reach out, ask me questions. Don't hesitate, okay? If you don't have my number, obviously you have me here or somewhere in social media, so I'd be happy to help you there. And I shall see you mañana. Adios. Good night.